Crowded airports, tiny seats, delayed flights. 20 years ago, there were 10 major airlines. Now, 4 airlines control 80% of the market. This is the state of air travel.
This is balls.
And that's me, stranded in Washington Dulles after my flight was canceled. So here's something I didn't want to hear when reporting this video. Flying is actually better than it's ever been. Okay, well, that actually depends on who you're talking to.
My name is Gary, G-A-R-Y, Leff, L-E-F-F, that's Lima Echo Foxtrot Foxtrot. Overall, I do think that it's worth noting that air travel is incredibly reliable, it is incredibly safe, and even though we may be paying more for some of the things that we find annoying, those checked baggage fees that we all hate, on the whole, the total cost of travel is certainly not up.
He's right. On the whole, the cost of flying is cheaper than ever. On-time arrivals hover around 80%, and it's much safer than it was 50 years ago. And yes, there's this.
More headaches for travelers with hundreds more flight disruptions at airports across the U.S. today.
An American Eagle flight attendant loses his cool.
We're sleeping here for 3 hours, man. We're sleeping here for 3 hours.
Thank you.
And this.
I'm standing there at baggage claim, waiting for my bags to show up. There's no bags on the conveyor belt, but there are 2 pairs of dirty underwear.
But part of this is because airlines are actually getting more efficient. I know, but bear with me.
I think the thing that's driven the biggest change in the consumer experience has actually occurred just over the last 5 or 6 years, the real increase in load factors of the airlines.
So airlines are getting better at filling all of those empty seats, which makes it cheaper to fly, but still comes with its own cost.
So planes are generally full, and that makes the travel experience a whole lot more stressful. You no longer have the space on the plane just by virtue of having somebody sit next to you. And if something goes wrong, there's a lot less slack in the system. There are fewer seats available to be moved onto for that next flight or the flight after that to get where you're going. So things have to operate perfectly in order for your travel to go well.
And from the airline's perspective, part of being efficient is making sure that consumers are paying only for exactly what they're willing to pay for. So now there are a lot more choices to make and budget for along the way. More options that aren't included in the initial price of the ticket.
We used to complain about airline meals, and now we complain about not having airline meals.
Where the hell is my cheese strudel?
I don't think there's any industry that's more advanced than the airlines in working to try to figure out what any given consumer is willing to pay for a specific trip. Some people are willing to pay with their time waiting in line, and other people are much more time sensitive and will pay with dollars to avoid those lines.
So here's how Gary sees it. Different people are going to experience air travel differently. There are the people who only really care about getting from point A to point B. These are people who might have chosen to drive in the past, but now that air travel is cheaper, they can fly instead. Then there are the people who fly pretty often, those who might get the occasional first class upgrade, and the people who already fly first class. But then there are the people in the middle, the ones sitting in coach, who in the past might have benefited from a free checked bag and an empty seat. That's a lot of us. So that's the system working as it should. And like many things, your experience depends on who you are and what you value.
So unquestionably, the airline industry has worked hard to become more efficient. And in terms of not wasting resources, it's probably true that they are more efficient than they've ever been. At the same time, in terms of whether or not the status quo is the best of all possible worlds, I don't think that's true.
No, Gary, it's definitely not.
Hey, NBC News viewers, thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking on that button down here. And click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives. Thanks for watching.